Welcome. Thanks for joining us. This is it's great to be with you. And we tried to start on time, and then I realized I didn't have the nice intro, and so we had a little bit of scrambling there at the end. And you got the StreamYard special, the default. Thank you very much for joining us. I've got a topic here that we want to talk about, movement. So what we're referring to and what we're not referring to. I'm hoping that this will be useful for those that are trying to experiment more with in-character play, because it's something that comes up a lot when you don't have a battle map and you're pushing around your little miniature. How does movement work, right? How does movement work? Oh, I see we have a few people joining us. Thank you for joining us. We're going to go back. I think, Phil, what do you want to do? Back afterwards, we'll go through the comments and try to address them then. We'll go through our presentation and then go
when
from
it
there.
Feels organic.
Right. Yeah. Right. Sounds great. Okay. So, Phil, you wanted me to say anything more on this, or just to launch right into it, and then you were going to...
Well, let's just kind of expand on it a little bit more.
Let's pull on this thread a little bit. Absolutely. So what are we talking about with movement?
Yeah. Well, and why would it be useful?
Why will it be useful? Well, in order to illustrate this, I think the best thing to do to start off, and we'll go into kind of what we're talking about in greater depth, but why not start with an example? So I've selected here a clip from our recent game. This is the game that, Phil, you ran on Monday for us. We've got Max, Eli, and myself as players. Phil's running the game. I've selected just a brief clip here. I'd like us to watch this. And while we're watching it, pay attention to the movement that's described. And that's really that's the crux of what we're going to be talking about tonight, is that movement thing. So here, it's not very long. I've sped it up just a very, very slightly.
Is this so just that we can elaborate setup to point me out picking my nose?
Say for it. Watch for it. We'll pause it just in the right moment. Here it is. Okay. So again, we're listening or listen. I invite you to listen for movement in this brief scene.
I mean, it's only temporary. I know we've been here for a while, but it's pretty bad back home.
All right, let's get in. Let's see what the guy has to say. And I signed to Osman to go first.
I opened the flap.
This isn't what we're talking about tonight, but what Max did there is a very good table etiquette as a player. And what I mean by that is he cues, I've done my turn, here's your turn, without saying, okay, now it's your turn. He just cued it. Anyway, we're not talking about that tonight. We're talking about movement. Listen for the movement.
Walk through. Hey, I'm back.
I follow behind and I pull out down my hood. Now I adopt a more normal posture.
You recognize
it. Excuse my disgruntled appearance. I have to be discreet.
The inside of the tent has a very luxurious rug. There's a small table, a short but a large table, 6-person table sitting on that rug. Some pillows. There's a hookah on top of the table.
I think
Cato is there sitting on one of the pillows, leaning back. Doesn't really get up as you guys enter. His wife is over in standing over to the side. She's boiling up a pot of water.
I take off my boots before stepping on the large carpet.
He says in Naji, Tanaka, Chogi, get up, go outside. And 2 children laughing at each other. The smaller one chasing the larger runs outside. One of them holding on to a toy, strange figurine. Looks like some kind of savage man.
And I sit down at the little table on the ground, on the little pillow there.
I get up after removing my boots as well, and I walk over near Bertrand and get Cato and nod, find a place to sit down.
He gestures towards the pillows with his hand silently and gestures towards the hookah as other hoses attached.
Okay, that's long enough. Honestly, that scene is a great example of movement. At every part in that scene, the players are careful to describe where they are, like how they are moving in that scene, in that world, in the tent, which was, I thought you described very well. There's also this sense of there's movement that actually isn't kinetic. She's standing boiling water. He doesn't sit up while the rest of you, or he doesn't stand up. But this idea, like Max starts this thing where he removes his shoes before he steps onto the carpet. Okay, I know this may, to the casual listener, this could be like, okay, guys, come on, like, why are you splitting hairs over this? I'm
God, you
convinced
guys love yourselves.
this is not splitting hairs.
Yep.
This is an example of players paying close attention to the movement of their characters in the world. It was so good that Max opens the tent flap and then gestures for Osmond to go in. Osmond describes himself going in. When you are playing in this format without a battle mat, it is so important to state the movement as the player so that everyone can situate themselves. And then there's no question as to what you were doing. Max goes, he sits down on the pillow. That's, don't neglect that, because if we spend a lot of time talking about it, and last week, to tie it into our discussion last week, Phil, we spend a lot of time talking about the importance of player independence. And that ties into this concept of agency, player character autonomy. Well, a key component of that, maybe an essential component of that, is the movement of that character in the world. We often will start games. I know I've said this. I've heard Rick say it too. During this game, we are going to try our best as the game master or whatever, referee. I am not going to move you. We say that a lot, don't we? We're like, we're not going to move you. It's important that we don't move you. But if we're not going to move the players, then what has to happen? Well, by default, the players have to be moving themselves. How do you move yourself in a game that's just pure imagination? There's no mat. There's no, you're not using a digital map interface or anything like that. Well, you have to state it.
And what's the alternative to that is the GM says, okay, you guys sit around the table.
Yes.
As soon as it's like, we're going, so they might say, okay, we go in the tent. It's like, okay, there's a big table right there. It's like, oh, okay, you guys sit around the table.
So you sit
like,
around.
That is so, who cares?
Well, and that falls into this
moment versus what actually happened. It shows a reverence for the culture. It shows that there's a camaraderie between Max and the host. There's a wife there. I'm running kids out the tent.
And that was great. Setting. So again, so movement is important for player and GM alike. Mm-hmm. The difference in where this falls apart sometimes is where we get into the habit of the character is not stating that they're moving, but it's assumed they're moving. Yeah. And so the game master, you're putting your game master in a spot where he may feel like he has to clarify your movement. And then you get into this second person trap where, okay, now you enter the tent, you sit down, because I see we've all done that. It's poor form. It's much better to actually be explicit about this when you're the player and when you're the game master.
And those types of moments, kind of the whole one of the big reasons I got onto this the interest on how best practices to roleplay is because the GMs get in that rut where they're like, okay, my players are passive players. They're not going to say anything ever.
Right.
And then I am playing, I don't want to be a passive player. And then the GM does things for me. And I'm like, my player doesn't work the way you're describing. He's not just going to walk in and sit down. He might want to stand up and kind of show that he's boss or do what he wants. And so the idea of independence, it requires, and I think this is kind of what you're leaning into, it requires that you take responsibility for every single little thing that your character does.
Yes.
Not only that, put flavor on it.
Yeah, exactly. I was describing this to my wife, the topic that we were going to talk about tonight?" And she was like, "So what are you going to talk about?" And I was explaining to her, and I tried to give her an example. And here's an example. If you're playing your character has to go to the office.
Mhm.
Okay, you could just say, "I go to the office." All right, but I think that there's missed opportunity there. It would be much better to say, "I go downstairs, I walk downstairs, I put on my shoes, I grab the keys, I go, I get in, I go to the garage, I get in." You don't have to be exhaustive in the detail, but don't take it for granted that everyone else at the table knows how you're getting somewhere. We can fall into this idea of just of being too lackadaisical when it comes to the movement through the world. And what that happens then, or what can happen if we're not careful, is that we become these talking heads, right, Phil? Like you're just a talking head that's then teleported over here because someone else moved there. You didn't say how you got there, but you're just suddenly there. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah.
what we
It takes
avoid.
away all the best. So many good parts of a movie are walking around. I
Yes.
hate to do the thing where you compare role playing games to movies, but the infamous slow walk
Yes.
of Usual Suspects, I think is what it is.
You did this in that scene. I won't go back to it, but you did this when Kato is puffing on the hookah.
Yeah.
And Max's character is saying, "I'm sorry to, impose on your hospitality." And he has this moment where he just, it's described, and to me, I consider it's not just anchoring. There's a movement component to it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a kinetic component.
The
Anyway,
anchoring perfected by Crispy here.
that's my thing. I really am a big believer in anchoring, but I also think
Slow burn.
anchoring, the slow burn, the small details that are added in as a color. But the other thing is, I struggle with this sometimes with players as they're learning to be in character all the time. One of the typical things that comes up is they kind of look and wait for me to describe them moving.
Right.
And that's the crux of it. If we can get right down to it, if we boil away all the other stuff, we should not, as players, be expecting that the game master moves us along, and then still have the the audacity to claim that, well, a good game master would give me autonomy and agency.
Exactly.
And, well, you have to take that initiative too. A good player will take the initiative, like you do so often. We've played a lot of different genres, a lot of different games, and in a lot of different systems. The most memorable scenes are the scenes where players have taken full control of the movement of their characters, and they do something that's unexpected. And if not unexpected, it's something that is unique to Tino. He moves through the scene in a certain way, as described by you. If I'm describing all player movement, guess what's going to happen? It's going to homogenize, and we don't want that.
Yeah, I remember some really cool Tino movement moments for sure. The one that comes to mind is when they're in the cars.
Yes. Yes.
But I totally agree. I have a clip where it's kind of just me being garbage.
Let's watch it. Let's do it.
Okay.
What's it for movement? Here we go.
This is the end of the game of the session. Same game.
Yes. Same game. End of the game.
You got to pull it up.
Oh, I have to do it. I apologize. There we go.
Okay. So they are at the bar. They're about to go upstairs. The bartender has come, or the waitress has come by, told them, "Okay, you're good. I think I've got it queued up to that. Here we go."
All of us, right?
All of us. I want to be there.
Yeah, no, you can all come.
But
Period.
Massive.
Don't speak until you're being spoken to.
Okay, so right there, I'm describing how big Buckley is.
Right.
You guys are still having a conversation about what you're going to do. The plan.
Yes.
I don't care. You walk up.
And keep your answer short.
Do you hear what I said?
Sorry? Did I miss it?
Did you hear what I said?
Speak
Oh,
until
you
you're
walk
being
up.
spoken to.
You walk
And
up.
keep your
walk over. I
He
almost
moved that.
it,
He moved us.
and I realized instantly, I'm like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah, that's right.
Because
You
you guys are like
did.
developing this cool plan. You're talking to my NPCs, like
Well,
coaching them a little bit. And I'm like, why am I moving them? This
yeah,
is like
it's not
the
needed.
good juice right now.
It's
This is
so
the tension
tempting.
juice.
Yeah, it's so tempting. Here's something that we can do as players to help out in a situation like that.
Yeah.
It's entirely appropriate to plan. And some players, I know Max really likes, or he's played characters that really like to have a plan. I remember the first game ever I played with Max, he was playing a thief of some kind in a Castles and Crusades game. And his character liked the planning side of things.
Yeah.
What I'm going to suggest is take that zeal for planning, add movement to it.
Mm-hmm.
Even in, again, referencing other visual media, like if you were to reference a TV show or a movie, you'll have areas or times where there's dialogue, but there's still movement in the dialogue. There's still it's rare that they're just sitting there.
There's one of the famous ones I'm thinking of right now is L from Death Note.
Yes,
he's like constantly planning, but he's always like eating.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. It's like
Exactly.
Let's hit a couple comments.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so what's best practice? Is it to start with the most recent and work back, or is it to start back and work forward?
Just only pick the ones for people we like.
I like all these people. That's not helping. I like all of them.
Any avoided comment is a slight.
It probably could be, but you know what? I just want to let's just see. We're getting some props from Bacon for the game.
You,
fun to watch. Max incredulous saying, "Really?" Of course, Max. Yep, that's an interesting fantasy noir. Yeah, kind of. Yes, I was at 1.25 times, and it's just so that we could fit within our allotted time. We were trying to target half an hour. Stating where your character is or what he does avoids the floating head syndrome. Exactly, Max.
Yeah,
exactly. Movement can solve this. It's also a gift to the person running the game, because if you're moving yourself, then they don't feel they have to move you at all.
Mm-hmm.
And
like the whole second story going on.
Yes. Yeah. Glad you can make it. See, always good to see you. And I'm glad that you're talking about this too. I think that many of us that are focused on in-character play, this is something that comes up quite a bit. Well, how do you tell where you are and what you're moving to? It's really important. Every stream is better with Bacon. Yes. That's a very big challenge when jumping from 2D to 3D, 4D. Players got all Pavloved, like Pavlov's dog, I assume, into awaiting teleportation. It is very satisfying to be in full control of your character, though. I'm finding this very thing in my in-person game. We're struggling with that, with breaking the habit of just waiting for a cool description from the guy running the game. We're trying to get away from that idea even of I'm running the game. I'm not running the game.
I'm not this ThriLing Table is a lot about what not to do.
Yes.
And that's fine. That is kind of at the heart, that issue is at the heart of almost everything.
Yes.
It's like players don't think that they're in a role-playing game, almost like it's really strange.
Yeah. And what I'm saying for anyone who's watching this on the replay, it at first it takes a bit of a risk to say this, because it seems almost like there's a bit of reluctance to take the as a player. Sometimes there's a reluctance to say, well, if I move myself a certain way, I could be putting myself in harm's way. Or later on, there was a comment here by someone that says here it is. A GM wants the players to move, but the player struggles imagining what's in the scene so they can interact with it. In other words, maybe I can't move. What if I say something that breaks the rules of the game?
Mm-hmm.
And I can acknowledge that can be a concern.
They've probably been admonished a lot.
Yeah. And that,
Or
yeah,
they
they
could have
probably
been
have been.
punished for ever daring to leave the road.
Well, back to this, the Pavlovian explanation of what's happening here. We have to be careful when we're running games to not stray into this. It's a bad habit that we're each of us is trying to shake, the habit of, well, I'll just move you around, it's easier, right? But it's I think you lose so much. You lose so much depth and richness from everyone describing their own movements, and how unpredictable that'll be by having 3 or 4 people at the table, and what they're going to do. It's going to be different. It's there was nothing in set beforehand that Max's character should remove his shoes before he sat down. That was just something that he did. It made the scene more believable to me, because we were mixing mixing things. It was a Japanese Persian type aesthetic. And he's helping improve the resolution of the world through moving through the world, and taking that on as a challenge. Some good comments here. Max always has got a good take. It's like those cinematics where just two characters are standing there talking, doing nothing. That's boring. You want to you click through those as quick as you can, right?
Yep.
Z with a comment. I've quit a campaign that was supposed to be fun and goofy, but the last session I played, the DM moved us players for 30 minutes at the start of the session. Couldn't stand it. I completely agree, Z. Like that, I don't think that Phil or I could handle that. Like at some point, you just say, well, wait. Why am I going there? I don't want to go there. Why do I have to go?
I would not go back also.
Yeah, just not go to that.
I would also not go to that game again.
Better with bacon. I like it. Yes. That's why I'm so big on this anchoring concept, Nick.
Yeah.
These little moments allow you to really show off the character, describing mannerisms that otherwise would never come up during play.
Yes.
And
gives you character.
So true. Yeah. And we've covered that, I think, because the follow-up comment by Z is really what the crux of it is here. Give your characters limp and an eye patch. Yeah. It's even just saying little things like, I walk to the door. There's just, instead of just like, I teleport myself to the door, and then I teleport myself to the next thing. And then someone does something cool and I suddenly want to be there. So suddenly I'm there. Well, wait a second. How did you suddenly get there? They're across the street talking to someone else, and now you're there? How did you get there? Like that.
Yes, that is bad.
So, we're not quite caught up, but some other comments on this, Phil, from you on this idea of you're building on the player independence that we discussed.
So
and movement.
How you move, you shouldn't be looking to the GM, for permission for anything.
Right.
And the GM shouldn't be looking to you for, is this an okay reaction to what you did? Yeah. Everyone should be independent of each other and working to make that narrative happen. Except, well, that's not a good way to say it. Everyone should be working together to what are they working together for?
Well,
play their own game, I guess.
Yeah, well, what they're trying to do, if we're all on the same page, and we may describe it different ways, and I think that's fine. Some of us are more.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, but what I was going to say is, what I'm hoping that we're all doing is we're all trying to role play these characters such that for that brief moment of time, maybe an hour or two, whatever it is, they become real to us. The fictional world becomes real. It's a real imaginary thing. It's a bit of an oxymoron there.
I would also say that I am more interested as a game master when the players are independent, because I don't prep anymore.
Yes.
So
yes, the game master is not a director of the action. You're not there standing with the whatever that thing is they use in Hollywood with the cut. You're not doing that. You're not doing that. You do that. I shouldn't say that. You started off like we started off. You describe where you are, where everyone is at the starting point, and then as soon as you finish that, everyone has their autonomy. they move through the world as we create the world together, seeing through the eyes of these characters and trying to role play as that character throughout. This is very much, as a hill I'm going to die on. I think good role play involves quirks and little things that make your character come alive. Little things, the idiosyncrasies that don't have to make sense. They just, like that's my thing. I'm a germaphobe. I'm petting a filthy pigeon. Okay?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be completely congruous all the time. You can live with some incongruity.
Also, like, you happen to get, like, right at the end.
Yeah.
I forget what his name was. Buckley.
Buckley, the boss.
Disgusting man.
It's just brutal. And
like,
but the thing is,
out of his teeth.
he was greasy, disgusting.
His hand around you.
And I don't know if it came through, but in my head, as I'm imagining this scene, I'm imagining this character that's Phil is inventing there in the world. I'm also at the same time thinking, sorry, that was my doorbell. My apologies. I'm imagining how horrific that would be for me, because at that moment I am the character. I am what was his name?
What's his name? Prosper.
What's his name? Right?
Yeah. Prosper.
Right. I was Prosper. So at that moment, it was like, no, he's going to snap, and he does snap, and almost dies, and it was a thing of beauty. I loved it.
Probably should have killed him.
He probably should have, but I think it was great.
Independence really added a lot of tension to that scene too.
It did,
especially at the beginning when Max is getting ushered out to the paddy wagon. I'm like, I have no idea how you're not going to jail. Like, literally always going there. I'm like, I don't know what you're gonna do.
Yep.
And so it became this like real intense situation.
It's just
because I would not stop, and he was in trouble.
Yes. Yes.
For real life.
It's just so, it's such there's a qualitative difference between a session where everyone's moving independently in the world and one where it's a second person kind of thing where you're just told you're here now you're here. Okay, so am I going to be able to move in this scene? Don't know. I do know if I say nothing, I'll just be moved to the next one. and that is inviting a passivity of play that we just do not think has staying power. I don't think that. I think eventually you just get bored with that.
And I think that you develop a resentment for role playing.
I think so too.
Because it's not what you thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not the I can do anything I want. It's the I'm watching a show.
Yes.
Sorry.
Exactly. It becomes a spectator sport.
Yeah.
And there's nothing there. Yes, there's elements of spectating because I have to be paying close attention to what the other characters are doing, what the other players are having their characters do, so that I can interact with them in ways that are believable. And yeah, this is I think that was Phil. Would you mind confirming? Was that what was happening here? I was playing a bit of a germaphobe, didn't like human contact, and that made Buckley more gross and visceral. And
if I'm being 100% honest, it was a coincidence.
It's a coincidence. That's cool too.
But if I was that badass, that's a really good example of the middle ground between independence and narrative.
Yes.
That I think is good to strive for in those, like, when you can find symbolism and a match of theme. I think those are good exceptions as a game master or rabble rouser.
As a rabble rouser.
Yeah.
I've been launching a new game, and we should wrap up, but I've been launched a new game, and it's it's an older game. I was reading kind of the advice for the game master, and it was antithetical to what I want as a role player and as someone who's trying to encourage people to role play. Be in character. I'm encouraging in character. And so much of the advice in this book was out of character, and it just was. It's hard. Your games will be better if you can remember to move your own self. It will be so much better. Just start small.
Be someone
do it.
in a world.
Be someone in the world. People in a world. Move. Move around.
And if you're a GM, the world is going to react.
Yes, exactly. You're helping your game master. Some people are worried, I think, sometimes that they're stepping on people's toes. You're not stepping on people's toes by describing your character stepping. It's good for them to be moving. It provides more dynamic things happening in the world. It's more believable that the world becomes more believable, I mean, as the inhabitants of the world move as they would if it was a real place. And that's up to you. It's up to me as players. Game master, make sure your NPCs move. Describe them moving. Don't take it for granted that everyone just knows they just moved there. It may have just happened in your head. You're gonna have to say that out loud, and your games will be better.
Start with some chin rubbing.
Start with some chin. Stare at someone over the hookah pipe. Sit at the pillow at the low table, and enter the tent. Like, walk into the tent. Do those things. Don't take it for granted, and certainly don't put that on your game master to be the one that does all that. That is your responsibility as an independent actor in that world, an independent character. Anyway, that was the topic. I thought, I hope that's useful to someone out there. I think certainly useful for me. I'm always reminding myself, how am I going to get there? Am I walking, driving, flying, falling, running, sprinting? What is it? Put that language back in to your role play, and your role play will be way more thrilling.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you very much, everyone that watched this live. Thanks for our fellow role players that were in the comments, and for all those that catch us on the replay. Thanks for watching. We will see you on the next one, and stay tuned. I'm sure we'll have more content on the way. Any closing thoughts, Phil?
No, but God bless, and I hope you all have a thrilling table this week.
Absolutely. God bless. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.